Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am sharing two easy and adorable card projects that I created with the Concord 9th Tweet Life bundle. This includes a stamp set and coordinating stencil set. You can see those here. Now the genius of this is that the smaller birds are designed in 3 rows and the stencil perfectly coordinates with it. So if you want to do all 3 rows of these birds, it fills up an entire A2 size card front. Or you can kind of mask them off and do each individual row as I'll do today. Now there's also 2 larger bird stencils, and these are great because you can flip them around and use them for other shapes, kind of abstract shapes as well, and I'll show you that here in just a bit. For the first card, I am starting out with my Waffle Flower grip mat on my glass mat and an A2 size card front. This is from Concord 9th white cardstock. And I'm going to use the 3rd row of birds on the stencil, but I kind of wanted to create it at an angle. So I'm angling it onto my cardstock and the grip mat will hold that all in place. And I'm using the little protector from my grip mat to kind of place over the top of the stencil. And once again, that grip mat will hold it in place. And that's going to keep me from getting ink on the 2 upper layers of birds. Now I have a piece of scrap paper here, and I'm starting out by blending each of these birds in the 3rd row of my stencil individually. So I'm starting out with Sorbet ink, and I do have another protector along the bottom of my card. Then I ripped my scrap paper in half and I used it to mask off the outer birds, and I'm blending this middle bird in Tidepool ink. And then I can move my scrap piece of paper over again to block off those first 2 birds. And I'm blending the 3rd bird using Stardust ink. So this is a fun color combination that was inspired by the calendar pack from Concord 9th that was released this month as well. And now that I have all of my bodies stenciled, I can remove that first layer and I can position the wing layer of these birds. And once again, I use the cover for my grip mat to kind of protect the upper part of my stencil and card. And I'm using that scrap piece of paper once again to just block off the other birds in this row as I stencil on their little wings. And I think this is so cute. And I thought it was a fun idea to kind of do this at an angle rather than straight across the card. So now that I have my bird bodies and my bird wings on my card there at an angle, I'm going to remove the cardstock from my grip mat and I'm going to take it over to my MISTI stamping tool. Now I have a Waffle Flower grip mat inside of my MISTI stamping tool as well, and I'm going to place my card front right in the center of my MISTI stamping tool, and I'm going to grab the Tweet Life stamp set. Now the stamp set is designed with 3 one-piece stamps that coordinate with each row of the birds on the stencils. So I'm grabbing the row 3 stamp. This has all of the beaks and the feet and the details for these birds on one stamp, and I'm lining it up. It's not super precise. You're not doing any die cutting here, so you don't have to be overly careful about how you place it on there. Just line it up. And then I've stamped it in Cobblestone ink on top of my birds, and now I have all these fun little details. Now, when I started creating this card, I thought I would do a few strips of different colored cardstock beneath my birds, and I'm cutting those here with my trimmer. But what I ended up doing was actually just using a single strip of this colored cardstock, and I used the Tidepool one. So I'm kind of shuffling this around and seeing what I want, and then I decided to grab that Tidepool strip, and I'm going to stamp the thank you greeting from the Tweet Life stamp set right onto that Tidepool cardstock. So I'll pick that up with a block. I'm going to do some block stamping here. I know that we don't often do that, but it's still a valid option. And I've inked up this stamp with some Tidepool ink and then stamped it right onto this colored cardstock strip. And that was exactly what I wanted. Now I grabbed another sentiment stamp from the set and I'm going to stamp that below this cardstock strip, and I'm going to stamp that directly onto the card front using the Cobblestone ink. So that strip is not yet adhered in place. I just have it kind of positioned there so I can see where I want to stamp this, and then I will go ahead and grab this out of my MISTI stamping tool and then add some foam adhesive to the back of this Tidepool strip and adhere it onto my card front at an angle. And then I'm going to trim off the excess. Now I thought it would be fun to add a couple enamel dots onto the strip, so I just grabbed some leftovers from one of the Concord 9th summer camps that I taught at. These are some enamel accents from that. You could use the Concord 9th white enamel dots for this, and I just placed one on either side of my thank you sentiment on that strip just for a little adornment because, you know, I'm all about the adornment. And then I'm going to take this entire card front and adhere it onto a Stardust card base that I have cut using the new basket weave card front die. And this card front die is great because it doesn't have an outer edge. So you can use it to add texture to any card base or card front or die cut that you want. Now I'm just finishing this off with a little bit of shimmer pin and some white gel pen accents, and that completes my first card. But I was having such a good time with these little birds that I thought I would create a second card, and this time I'm going to use one of the larger birds. Now keep in mind that these stencils are reversible, so technically you could flip any of these in the opposite direction, but the stamps won't work with the rows of birds. Instead, you could like draw in your little feet or something. That would be something very easy to do. So I've positioned this piece of A2 size cardstock onto my waffle flower grip mat. And now I'm doing some blending with the Concord 9th Nectar ink. I'm starting with that. Then I'm coming in with a little bit of Sorbet ink just along kind of the belly and the tail of the body there, just that lower portion to add a little bit of shading. Now I will bring in some other colors, but I didn't think of it yet, so we're just going to move right along. And I'm going to grab the stencil that has all of the larger wings. Now you can use any of the larger wings that you like on these larger birds. You just kind of line them up where you think it looks good. It's not super precise. It's going to look good no matter how you do it. And once I've lined it up, I'm going to blend with the Sorbet ink again. And you saw me place the cover for my waffle flower grip mat at the top of my card to protect that card. Now I decided I wanted to bring in some more color to the body, so I'm just realigning that first stencil that I used. And I've grabbed the Concord 9th Pink Lemonade ink, and I'm blending in from that area of sorbet color that I added earlier, and just adding a little more pinkness to this body, kind of shifting it to the pink side rather than so much orange. And then I can grab some of the detail stamps that were designed to go with the larger birds from the same stamp set and start lining them up on my bird here. So I'm just going to kind of grab what I want, the open beak, the little detail for the belly, and then there's a couple of foot options, so I'm just grabbing those. And I positioned them in place on my card front, and now I'm moving this very carefully over to my MISTI stamping tool and placing it in the center of that. And then I'll just close the lid of my MISTI to pick up those stamps, and then I'm going to ink them up in a couple of different colors. So to ink up the feet and the eye and the beak of my bird, I'm using Concord 9th Mushroom ink, and I'm just being very careful to work around the kind of detail piece for the belly there. It was easy enough to do. And I'll stamp those down. And then once I'm done with those, I'm going to actually remove them. And then I'm going to use the Concord 9th white pigment ink to stamp the details on the belly. Now, I could have gone a couple of different ways here. I could have used a different color of ink altogether, like a blue or something like that, or even a brown to kind of intensify it. But I wanted just like a light look on that pink area of the belly of my bird. So I went ahead and used the white pigment ink and I stamped it very gently a couple of times. And before I move on with my card project, I'll make sure that I use my heat tool to heat set those details on the belly so I don't smudge them. Now here is where I had a really good time. I'm like, let's make this a birthday bird. So I grabbed the beak for the larger bird, but this is the closed beak, and I'm just going to position it on the head of my bird. And yes, it's a little on the small side, but I think that's what makes it so cute and funny. I've also grabbed the sentiment from the stamp set that says Happy Birthday, and I've placed it along the back side of the body of my bird. And now I'm going to ink up these stamps in some Tidepool ink. Now I wasn't sure about the sentiment yet, so I didn't ink that up. I'm just inking up the little party hat, or actually what is the beak, and stamping that there. And then I'm going to ink up my sentiment stamp as well with that Tidepool ink. And I don't know if they did this on purpose, but I love how this sentiment kind of curves along the back of the bird really nicely. You're going to see when I stamp it down, it's almost like it was made to fit there. I'm not sure if they did that on purpose or not, but way to go, Concord 9th. If not, it was a happy accident. So now I have a couple of the feet for the larger bird, and I thought I would just ink up the little foot with some Stardust ink, line it up with the party hat to create the fringe on top of my little bird's party hat, and I think it turned out perfect. And I'm absolutely loving this bird, but I wanted to give him some ground to stand on. So I am taking one of the stencils for the large bird, and I'm kind of flipping it to where the belly is facing the feet of my bird. And I'm going to use it to ink up like a little hill underneath my bird. Now you could also kind of do a couple of these shapes or partial shapes in the corner to create some abstract shapes, but you can see I just have the belly kind of along the bottom of the card there. I'm inking up and blending with some Stardust ink, and it's going to create the perfect grassy little hill for my bird to stand on. I thought this was a fun way to use these stencils and maybe something a little out of the box that you may not have thought of. So once I finish up that ink blending, I'm going to work on my card base. So I have a piece of 5.5 by 8.5 inch Tidepool cardstock that I have scored at 4¼ inches to create my A2 size card base. But I'm going to take the basket weave die, which is also new in the October 2023 release from Concord 9th, and I'm going to angle it on my card base. Now you're going to see that this is hanging off, but that's not a big deal because this die does not have an outer cutting edge. So I can just add that little bit of texture at an angle on my card base, and it just adds a little interest, and I think it's fun to kind of do it at an angle like that. Now I've added some Tidepool enamel dots to my card front, and I'm adding this entire card front to my card base using some foam adhesive, and that completes my second card for today, featuring this adorable Tweet Live stamp and stencil pack from Concord 9th. I gotta say, I had so much fun creating these cards. When I started creating with these, I did not think I was going to fall in love, but I absolutely did because there's so many ways that you can customize these adorable birds, and I can't wait to make another card featuring these adorable smaller birds and using all the rows together. Now, as always, I will have links to the featured products used in these projects in the description at YouTube, so if you're looking for something in particular, be sure you check there. Or you can head on over to my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com, and I'll have that linked below. Over there, you'll find more still shots, more information, and a complete list of supplies. As always, I want to thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with me today. Let me know in the comments below which of these two cards is your favorite. And if you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications here on my YouTube channel so you don't miss any of my paper crafting and card making video tutorials. And hit that thumbs up button too. Thanks again for watching. I'm so glad you're here. And until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.